Well, thank you for joining us today on this original software Capita and Marston's webinar on how Marston smoothed the path for SAP upgrades. But before we begin, I would just like to go through some housekeeping items. And this webinar is being recorded for you to access and share with colleagues on demand. And to the right of your screen, you should see a control panel. This may be hidden and can be expanded to view by clicking on the double triangles. And all of you are on mute, and it will be the case during the webinar. But if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions panel, and we will do our best to answer them at the end. If you're having any technical issues, please use the raise your hand facility, and we will try and attend to your needs. Alternatively, you can use the chat panel, but be sure to send your question to me and not to the entire audience. So let me introduce our speakers for the next 45 minutes. We have Phil, Head of Information Systems at Marston's, and Elizabeth Winspear, aka Liz, our testing consultant at Capita and Marston's, and Ben Williams, Head of Performance and Automation, Capita. So hello guys.
Hi. Hello. Hey, yeah.
Right, so launching straight over to Phil to kick off, it'd be great to learn more about Marston's.
Okay then, Marston's, our business is about being an independent brewer and pub retailer. We operate about 1,800 pubs and bars, and these are a mixture of managed, leased and franchised pubs, and we also operate the Pitcher and Piano brand of outlets. We've got 5 breweries, just take you through them. In Burton-on-Trent, the Marston's Brewery; Witney, the Wychwood Brewery; Wolverhampton, Banks's; Cockermouth in the Lake District, the Jennings Brewery; and Ringwood in Dorset. Also tell you very briefly about our brands, because we are proud of them. They include Marston's Pedigree, EPA, Old Empire; Wychwood Hobgoblin and Oxford Gold; Banks's Bitter, Mild and Sunbeam; Jennings, Cocker Hoop, Cumberland, Snecklifter; and Ringwood, 49er and Old Thumper. In addition to that, we've got distribution centres across the UK to service our customers. And a couple of stats to finish with. We have an annual turnover of over £700 million, and we have about 13,000 employees.
Thank you, Phil. Quite impressive. And Phil, it would be great if you could set the scene and talk us through about the IT team at Marston's. For example, the size and core applications?
Sure. We have about 30 people in our corporate IT department, and we undertake a range of activities across IT support and development. Our core applications include SAP modules. We've got 4 of them: ECC, HCM, SRM and BW/Business Objects. As far as projects go, we tend to get development requests from our internal business customers, for example in supply chain, sales, finance, purchasing, etc. And over the years we've developed a project methodology to help us deliver these. Testing was and is part of this methodology, but in about 2009 we recognised the importance of testing by formally appointing a test manager. This in time led us to identify the need for having some testing software, which is where original software came in. We started to use Test Drive Assist for manual testing within specific projects. We then identified the need for some form of automation, which is going to be covered in more detail later in this session. But just to say, that's where Capita came in, to help us with the size and scale of such a project and the demands of an SAP ECC upgrade.
Thank you, Phil. It's been great working in partnership with both Marston's and Original Software, and the Capita team have been very easy to work with and very knowledgeable in the best practices. So with that in mind, could you tell us about your critical SAP upgrade? And we could start with the challenge and the impact of the business.
Okay. Well, the project briefly was about upgrading our ECC5 system to the latest ECC6 version to keep up to date with the latest version from a support perspective. We had a project manager assigned internally and some internal basis and ABAP programming resource, plus external consultancy resource in these areas. The challenge was to complete the upgrade in a limited amount of time and budget, and for our business users to enjoy a seamless transition to the new version. Similarly, from a testing perspective, our challenge was to cover a large amount of test scenarios in a limited amount of time with limited resources available. And again, that's where Capita came in. We were looking for an organisation with skills and experience in this area, and Capita certainly matched that requirement. The testing part of the project was basically run for us by Capita. But having said that, Capita were very much part of the overall project team and integrated with what we were trying to do.
Well, thank you, Phil, and it feels like a good stop for a poll. I'd like to launch a poll to just ask our delegates about their approach to SAP enhancements. So what we're going to do is launch that poll, and a window will open up on your screens, and if you tick on the question or the answer that applies to you. So we've launched the poll, and if you can tick the one that applies. How well documented are your business processes in your current version of SAP? Good coverage, customizations, documented little else, no reliable documentation. Oh, thank you for those that have voted. Thank you. Please keep those votes coming in. It will be great to get an overall picture of how our delegates are performing the SAP enhancements. Some of you, yeah, a little bit more. I'm just going to give you guys a couple of seconds before we close this off and share the results back to the audience. Please keep those votes coming in, but I think we'd probably need to close this poll out now. So if we close the poll and share it with the audience. Right, so you should be seeing the results now. We've got 36% of you saying good coverage, now 36% customizations, documented little else, and 20% no reliable documentation. Ben, what are your thoughts about those sorts of results?
So that's pretty much standard, I guess, across what we're seeing across the companies that we're in at the moment, that people have either got processes documented or have got them documented in such a way that they need a little bit of extra help just to get that experience and a little bit more into them, really. So that's probably what we would expect on that poll.
Okay, right, so if we close that poll or hide poll and return back to our presentation. So I have, we continue on with Ben actually. Ben, could you lift the lid and tell us a little bit more about the process that Marston's adopted for their SAP upgrade?
Yes, so thank you, Maria. So as Phil was saying, Marston's had a business critical project that was also time critical to be delivered. It needed to be in before the period end of year, so it was crucial that they got the right people in, the right tools in. So in this case, they came to Capita with the experience of the test, SAP and automation to leverage the tools that they've already got in place, which was the original software package. In this section, I'm just going to run over quite a high level of what we did in the approach and pick out some key points. So as I said, it was a business and critical project, so therefore we had to make sure that what we was delivering was as risk adverse as possible, and equally as well was delivered on time. And the way that we did that, we initially came in to do the initial engagement. We designed the approach in conjunction with Marston's. Then we went into a baselining, which for this period we call an SLP selfie, because what we did was took the tests that we designed, ran them on the current ECC5, so we got a good picture, and then we got a good baseline of where we were. Then we moved on to system integration testing on the version 6, ECC6, and then moved into close down. So that was the high level approach, and I just want to go into pick out some more key figures in there and some points. So During the design phase, we looked at how we was going to capture the business processes. And one of the great things about this tool is that it allows you to use Test Drive Assist to actually capture business processes. So what we did was installed it on the users' desktops in the background and asked them why they was doing their day-to-day jobs, break it down into the T codes that they're working on within the SAP, or essentially into components that we could use. That was pretty easy going because it was just a couple of clicks extra during the day-to-day jobs. It recorded their actions, stored it back into onto the original software server, where we was then able to access it. We use Qualify as the matrix and the assignment for the teams, and the live matrix that we was doing, and also the linkage and defect tracking. And the way that we actually did the automation was we broke it down into component and business processes. So what I'm saying there is, when you originally, when you log on, instead of rewriting log on in each of the tests, we just captured that once, had that as a component, had another section or a T code as a separate component, and then linked a series of those together to create a business process. What that allowed us to do was cut down on repetition during the tests, increase the maintenance that we will see later when Liz comes on to talk to us about how it's maintained. It increased the test coverage as well, because the less time we was actually scripting meant the more time we could actually rerun these scripts. And it also cut down on the amount of time as well, because we were getting the business users to actually record their transactions for us using Test Drive. What that cut down on was the amount of workshops that we needed, and also when it was shipped to remote locations, people could also actually see it physically what they was doing without having to drag business users out of their day-to-day jobs as often. So that was all good quality design. And really, I've got to throw credit back into Marston's here, because it was them that had the vision to look at what success meant to them, and in turn what that meant of how they was going to deliver. They picked the tool in original software, they gained the partners within Capita, and then followed that up with the drive from themselves in Marston's. Meant that this project was a success, and that's been recognised across 2 awards now, where we was nominated in the Tester Awards and also in the Grocer Awards, where we actually won the award at the Grocers.
Yes, it was an achievement, Ben, and yeah, likewise congratulations all around, and particularly to Marston's for that achievement. And I just would like at this point to say to our delegates that at the end of this session we will be providing you a link to view a little video clip of an animation output from our product Test Drive Assist that will show you what a business process capture looks like over SAP at Marston's. And I think that's a natural place to actually launch our second poll. So you should see again a window pop open. We launch that poll now, and I'd like to really understand from our delegates, how well documented are your business processes in your current version of SAP? No? What is your approach to an SAP enhancement? That is the poll that we are running at the moment. So do you make regular updates to derive maximum value from SAP systems, or make occasional updates to balance benefits against risk? Or are you risk averse and make minimal changes to SAP? So if you could please vote now, please select the one that applies to you. Okay. Thank you to those that have voted. Please keep those votes coming in. Thank you. I can still see a few people voting now. Okay. And we will close off that poll now and share with you the results. So we can see that 17% of you actually say that you make regular updates to your SAP system. Whopping 58% occasional updates and 25% are risk averse. And I think, Ben, you can share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so interesting results there. 58% in the middle section there. I guess that shows that, you know, obviously you've got to balance against the risk against the cost. But you know, if you was able to leverage some of the tools and we've got here and maybe some of the processes we put in place, it may allow you to actually increase the amount of time that you introduce those upgrades.
Thank you, Ben. And Ben, on the subject, can you tell us a little more about the automation, specifically about how it was built?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so as I said, when we came in, Marston's already had the original software tool in place, so it was for us to pick up from an automation point of view and to use forward in this project. Now, one of the good things about this tool is that the fact that how easy it is to pick up, especially from an automation point of view. There's no coding involved, which means for us that we didn't have to add any specialist automation testers. We had one that was there just to make sure the process was correct, but then we filled that up with manual testers as well. So that was helped Marston's in cutting down the cost to them, and it aided us as well from an automation and manual point of view. As I said, so there's no real coding involved in this, so it's really good. The model we're using was an offshore based model with a couple of onshore test manager and test lead. So, and getting this picked up by the offshore was really easy. The way that we did it was, as I said before, we had the business users recording their actions. Those were then put back into a centralized management tool where the manual testers and the automation specialists were able to pick those up and turn those into actual automation tests and some manual tests. And to give you some stats there, that we was looking, we had about 1,000 T codes that was processing. So we turned those, and 80% of those got turned into automation scripts that was able to run around about in about 12 hours. So that cuts down quite considerably on the time that we was able to run. As we said, first off, what we wanted to do is take an SAP selfie or a baseline of where we were in the automation. So it was capturing those, turning those into those, making sure that we understood where we were from a point of view of the test and the data. And Test Drive Assist and the automation process allowed us to do this with its data-driven exercise and the variables we could put in there. Once we'd gained confidence in that and we understood where we were, we was able to move on to the upgrade itself and test that once it had been built. Again, it was really straightforward for us because of the way it all links back from qualify. You can see the linkage from the business process that the person record all the way through to the actual defects or to the tests themselves. We was able to quickly identify any issues and run those. And what we ended up with is, because we had 80% running and we could run them in about 12 hours, we ended up running the process over and over again within the SIT window. This gave us hardly any defects coming out of SIT. It gave us confidence in what the code was doing, and we was able to keep live updates and live tracking going forward. So it was a good good process and a good project that we ended up with.
Thank you very much, Ben, for talking about the automation, and it'd be great to understand the before and after benefits, and I'd like to actually ask Liz to tell us about that. What are the benefits not only to the IT and QA team but to the business as a whole?
Okay, thank you, Maria. As Phil highlighted earlier, Marston's really identified the need for more focus on testing in 2009. From that point, Marston structured a basic approach to testing. It was very much to use the Qualify system for test management and use Test Drive Assist to record manual results on a project-by-project basis. They really isolated the testing to confirm whether the project was fit for purpose at that time and didn't really look to reuse results or expected results for anything in the future. Although all the basic instincts were there, the application of those instincts still had a very young kind of first attempt type of feel. As part of the upgrade project, the team at Marston saw the opportunity to help the process grow and mature, resulting in a partnership with Capita and the automated regression pack that Ben's just spoken about. And so, onto that regression pack. As you can imagine, if Marston's had attempted to run over 600 scripts manually, it would have taken one resource well over 2 weeks to complete that level. With the automated regression pack that has been built for Marston's, we're able to complete those same business cases in just 2 days, so it really shows the impact there. Furthermore, if the regression of that level had needed to be run manually or without some sort of scripted manual regression pack, the wider business users would have had to take time out of their normal working day to either run their own testing or provide the information to the IT team. And this would often be for projects that weren't directly affecting their area of the business. With the automated regression pack, though, the IT department is able to support the wider business group in the form of the regression pack without interruption. Of course, the concern with a large number of automated scripts is the maintenance of that. And here at Marston's, there is a dedicated resource to that maintenance, and it's me. I found that using Test Drive Assist, and Qualify really easy to use, and I'm able to understand it. I've been able to update the scripts where dates or periods have needed moving on, or perhaps the data needs updating. And I've even been able to add new automated scripts to the pack when new transactions have been created within my role as test manager for Marston's, without having to dedicate myself full-time for that. As you can imagine, I wouldn't have been able to learn coded automation within that time scale.
Fantastic, Liz. And it would be great to understand what are the lessons that you've really learnt through this project.
Of course, as users of SAP will know, data is pretty important to SAP. We found that whilst we're in the regression packs over the past year, just how temperamental SAP can be when incorrect data is tried to be used. Therefore, one of the big lessons that we've learned is to actually organise the sequence of the regression pack so that data feeds one script to the next. Another way we've tried to mitigate the data issue is Marston's are currently running a technical project to create a specific regression client that's linked into our QA test environment, where the data within that client itself can be reloaded. Like I said, it helps with business cases running where data changes its status or perhaps move on, deletion and completion of the process. So really our data lessons are the ones that we've learned so far using the packs.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Liz. And I think over to Phil. Phil, it'd be great to learn more about the next steps and what's the future for Marston's IT.
Yes, certainly. Well, in the context of what we're talking about today, we'll explore using this approach and the framework we've put in place in other areas. So we're looking at what we do in ECC and the opportunity to apply this elsewhere. On a case-by-case basis, we'll look at it and see if it makes sense. We're currently doing this with our SAP HR HCM system. And we'll ask that same question, does it make sense in our other core SRM and BW SAP systems? So this is very much about applying the regression packs in these areas and also other non SAP areas could come into scope too.
Very good. Very nice, Phil. Right. Well, I mean, that's the end of our presentation, and it's time to go to Q&A. So if our audience have any questions that they would like to ask to any of our speakers, please use the question panel. If you can put there who you would like to ask your question to. Is it Phil, Liz or Ben? Please ask away. And we will put together a Q&A PDF, so we'll share that as a follow-up with the recording. Okay, I can see a couple of questions coming in now. Thank you very much. And just like to ask this question, if I read it out on behalf of the delegates, this question is to Liz. How much of your work is now automated?
I assume by our work it's to do with the SAP back office systems and the usage within that. Unfortunately, like I said, during the lessons learned, we found that data has been a bit of a problem. So we had automated over 600 cases, and that has now actually reduced down to around 450. Like I said, due to the data, we've had to reduce that down. But with the technical project that we're actually putting in at the moment, once we get our own regression client where data no longer becomes a problem, we're hoping definitely to go back up to that over 600 and perhaps more, where we'll be able to actually automate more up to the level that we actually did during the ECC upgrade project, which was around the 900 plus mark. Hopefully we'll get that high, but perhaps not.
Thank you, Liz. I can see another question in. So the question is how the training were organised for the users in case there were some functional transactional upgrades included. How the training were organised? How was the training organised for the users? Functional and transactional upgrades.
So, from the business user's point of view, it was relatively simple. When we was asking them to record their transactions, that was just a case of a small power pack that had some frequently asked questions, a quick how-to guide of how to do it. So that's what we got for the business users when they was actually recording it. So it was really simple for them. For our testing teams, when it was offshore, the guys that come onshore, what we did was brought them onshore for. We brought two onshore for the day. That we went to a 2-day workshop, and then we took that knowledge back offshore and used it. So it was relatively quick, relatively easy, and in actual fact, we probably found that most of it we could have picked up anyway during the actual usage. So training wasn't really an issue in this point.
Thank you, Ben. And actually, another question aimed at you. Can Ben provide comparisons to any other automation testing projects he has headed up?
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's differences in each project, but in terms of using something that's heavily as driven as SAP and as business critical as SAP, and the ERP systems, which is one of the most customized applications going really when you come into the projects, having something like this tool that was able to capture the business processes in such a way that meant that we was able to effectively and quickly turn those into scripts was a massive time saving and reduced risk to us, I think. So it was really good from that point of view.
Thank you, Ben. Just looking at a couple of more questions here. There's one question, Liz. Does Liz have any examples of using the regression pack in subsequent projects?
Yes. Thank you, Maria. Thanks for that question. The regression packs have been running now and have been created for almost a year. Marston's have implemented a significant warehouse management project, and the regression packs were used quite heavily during that project. We were doing practice rollouts throughout the environments to make sure that the actual go live was as smooth as possible, and we actually used the packs for a before and after for one of the other sites that Phil mentioned earlier, for our Burton site, which was the regression pack had been based on. So we were making sure that the rollout of one project wasn't impacting another part of the business. We did that quite a few times during the test environments.
Thank you, Liz. Just checking the time. Yeah, so we've still got more time for questions. What level of defects were found after going live after this approach to testing? Over to you, Ben.
So we had relatively few defects that were found because we was able to run the scripts and the processes end to end so often during the actual test phase. It meant that in all the development we got a really good test coverage. I was out there, so we're talking kind of low teens in terms of percentage wise sort of thing of defects. So so it was really good, and nothing that was significant that caused any problems.
Thank you, Ben. And another question for Liz. Earlier you mentioned that you are the only resource that needs to maintain the automated regression packs. Doesn't automation need dedicated teams of people?
Well, I don't really want to downplay how difficult or how much is needed for automation. It's really all about the preparation. You have to be willing to spend that time making sure any regression packs, especially automated regression packs, are stable. And that's what Marston's allowed us to do. We were able to put together quite robust automated packs so that we could continue to use them as part of regression. Like I've said, I am still doing maintenance as part of my role as test manager, and Marston still do allow me that time to keep the packs going, to improve them as best we can, but it isn't a full-time dedication, which I think is one of the benefits of the tool.
Thank you, Liz. And just looking at a question here for Phil. Phil, can Phil expand on any business benefits experienced by the wider Marston's group as a result of the regression packs owned and managed by the IT department?
Yeah, certainly good question. I think in summarising the benefits broadly, I think they're twofold. This whole approach gave us a framework and a rigour that we like within IT, and we expect and hope to apply that in future upgrade projects. So we've got something to work off in the future. And secondly, for us, there was a significant benefit in not taking business users out of their day job to help us with the upgrade. Liz mentioned earlier about the reduction in time that this gave us, another significant benefit, but in no way was there any reduction in the rigour and the detail in which we performed the testing, so quite a significant benefit there as well.
Thank you, Phil. Just carrying on with Q&A now. There's a question in, can the same approach be taken with other apps and ERPs such as Oracle e-Business Suite?
Yes, definitely. There's no reason. So this isn't an SAP specific tool, and it's not an SAP specific process. It was just it's a process that was put in place that allowed us to get the best possible risk-free or minimum risk to the upgrade. So this process can be put in place for any application or any software upgrade that's going forward, and also the original software tools as well can be used across a very wide variety of applications, webs, ERP systems, whatever you've got really, whatever upgrades come.
And I'm going to pick on you again, Ben. How many hours were saved?
So that's hard to quantify really, because obviously of the way that it's we was using this, but I would estimate we saved at least about 25% of time and cost across the board of the whole project sort of thing, doing it this way, if not more, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe that comes to the end of our Q&A session. So thank you for everybody that's been able to join us on this webinar today. As you can see, there is a link there to the origisoft.com/Marston's BPC, where you will see in action and outputs from Test Drive Assist and animation of a business process capture. And you could also visit Capita testing, origisoft.com/Capita testing, and learn all about Capita's testing services. So thank you, that's all we've got time for today. Upon exit of this webinar, you'll be introduced with a survey. If you could please tell us how well our presenters did today, that would be fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us, and if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.